An October Abroad by John Burroughs, Part 2, on the South Downs. One of my best days in England was spent amid the singing of skylarks on the South Down hills, near an old town at the mouth of the little Ouse, where I paused on my way to France. The prospect of hearing one or two of the classical birds of the Old World had not been the least of the attractions of my visit, though. I knew the chances were against me so late in the season, and I have to thank my good genius for guiding me to the right place at the right time. To get out of London was delight enough, and then to find myself quite unexpectedly on these soft rolling hills of a mild October day, in full sight of the sea, with the larks pouring out their gladness overhead, was to me good fortune indeed. The South Downs form a very remarkable feature of this part of England, and are totally unlike any other landscape I ever saw. I believe it is Huxley who applies to them the epithet of muttony, which they certainly deserve, for they are like the backs of immense sheep, smooth and round and fat, so smooth indeed that the eye can hardly find a place to take hold of, not a tree or bush or fence or house or rock or stone or other object for miles and miles, save here and there a group of straw-capped stacks, or a flock of sheep crawling slowly over them, attended by a shepherd and dog. And the only lines visible, those which bound the squares where different crops had been gathered. The soil was rich and mellow, like a garden, hills of chalk with a pellicle of black loam. These hills stretch a great distance along the coast and are cut squarely off by the sea, presenting on this side a chain of white chalk cliffs suggesting the old Latin name of this island, Albion. Before I had got 50 yards from the station, I began to hear the larks, and being unprepared for them, I was a little puzzled at first, but was not long in discovering what luck I was in. The song disappointed me at first, being less sweet and melodious than I had expected to hear. Indeed, I thought it a little sharp and harsh, a little stubbly. But in other respects, in strength and gladness and continuity, it was wonderful. And the more I heard it, the better I liked it, until I would gladly have given any of my songsters at home for a bird that could shower down such notes, even in autumn. Up, up went the bird, describing a large easy spiral till he attained an altitude of 400 feet, when spread out against the sky for a space of 10 or 15 miles or more, he poured out his delight, filling all the vault with sound. The song is of the sparrow kind, and in the best parts perpetually suggested the notes of our vesper sparrow, but the wonder of it is its copiousness and sustained strength. There is no theme, no beginning, middle, or end, like most of our bird songs, but a perfect swarm of notes pouring out like bees from a hive, and resembling each other nearly as closely, and only ceasing as the bird nears the earth again. We have many more melodious songsters, the bobolink in the meadows, for instance, the vesper sparrow in the pastures, the purple finch in the groves, the winter wren or any of the thrushes in the woods, or the wood wagtail, whose air song is of a similar character to that of the skylarks, and is even more rapid and ringing, and is delivered in nearly the same manner, but our birds all stop when the skylark has only just begun. Away he goes on quivering wing, inflating his throat fuller and fuller, mounting and mounting, and turning to all points of the compass, as if to embrace the whole landscape in his song, the note still raining upon you, as distinct as ever, after you have left him far behind. You feel that you need to be in no hurry to observe the song, lest the bird finish. You walk along, your mind reverts to other things. You examine the grass and weeds, or search for a curious stone. Still, there goes the bird. You sit down and study the landscape, or send your thoughts out toward France or Spain or across the sea to your own land, and yet, when you get them back, there is that song above you, almost as unceasing as the light of a star. This strain indeed suggests some rare pyrotechnic display, musical sounds being substituted for the many-colored sparks and lights. And yet, I will add, what perhaps the best readers do not need to be told, that neither the lark song nor any other bird song in the open air and under the sky is as noticeable a feature as my description of it might imply, or as the poets would have us believe, and that most persons not especially interested in birds or their notes, and intent upon the general beauty of the landscape, would probably pass it by unremarked. I suspect that it is a little higher flight than the facts will bear out when the writers make the birds go out of sight into the sky. I could easily follow them on this occasion, though if I took my eye away for a moment, it was very difficult to get it back again. I had to search for them as the astronomer searches for a star. It may be that in the spring, when the atmosphere is less clear and the heart of the bird full of a more mad and reckless love, that the climax is not reached until the eye loses sight of the singer. Several attempts have been made to introduce the lark into this country, but for some reason or other the experiment has never succeeded. The birds have been liberated in Virginia and on Long Island, but do not seem to have ever been heard of afterwards. I see no reason why they should, nor not thrive anywhere along our Atlantic seaboard, and I think the question of introducing them worthy of more thorough and serious attention than has yet been given it, for the lark is really an institution, and as he sings long after the other birds are silent, as if he had perpetual spring in his heart, he would be a great acquisition to our fields and meadows. It may be that he cannot stand the extremes of our climate, though the English sparrow thrives well enough. The Smithsonian Institution has received specimens of the skylark from Alaska, where no doubt they find a climate more like the English. They have another prominent singer in England, namely the robin, the original robin redbreast, a slight, quick, active bird with an orange front and an olive back and a bright musical warble that I caught by every garden lane and hedgerow. It suggests our bluebird and has similar habits and manners, though it is much better musician. The European bird that corresponds to our robin is the blackbird, of which Tennyson sings, "O blackbird, sing me something well, while all the neighbors shoot thee round. I keep smooth plats of fruitful ground, where thou mayest warble, eat, and dwell." It quite startled me to see such a resemblance, to see indeed a black robin. In size, form, flight, manners, note, call, there is hardly an appreciable difference. The bird starts up with the same flirt of the wings, and calls out in the same jocund, salutatory way as he hastens off. The nest, of course, mortar in the fork of a tree or in an outbuilding or in the side of a wall, is also the same. The bird I wish most to hear, namely the nightingale, had already departed on its southern journey. I saw one in the zoological gardens in London and took a good look at him. He struck me as bearing a close resemblance to our hermit thrush, with something in his manners that suggested the water thrush also. Carlyle said he first recognized its song from the description of it in Wilhelm Meister, and that it was a sudden burst which is like the song of our water thrush. I have little doubt our songsters excel in melody, while the European birds excel in profuseness and volubility. I heard many bright animated notes and many harsh ones, but few that were melodious. The fact did not harmonize with the general drift of the rest of my observations, for one of the first things that strikes an American in Europe is the mellowness and rich tone of things. The European is softer voiced than the American, and milder mannered. But the bird voices seem an exception to this rule. Parks. While in London, I had much pleasure in strolling through the great parks, Hyde Park, Regent's Park, St. James's Park, Victoria Park, etc., and in making Sunday excursions to Richmond Park or Hampton Court parks, or the great parks at Windsor Castle. The magnitude of all these parks was something I was entirely unprepared for, and their freedom also. One could roam where he pleased. Not once did I see a signboard, "Keep off the grass," or go here or go there. There was grass enough, and one could launch out in every direction without fear of trespassing on forbidden ground. One gets used, at least I do, to such petty parks at home, and walks amid them so cautiously and circumspectly, every shrub and tree and grass plat saying, "Hands off," that it is a new sensation to enter a city pleasure ground like the Hyde Park. A vast natural landscape nearly 2 miles long and a mile wide, with broad rolling plains, with herds of sheep grazing, and forests and lakes, and all as free as the air. We have some quite sizable parks and reservations in Washington, and the citizen has the right of way over their tortuous gravel walks. But he puts his foot upon the grass at the risk of being insolently hailed by the local police. I have even been called to order for reclining upon a seat under a tree in the Smithsonian grounds. I must sit upright as in church. But in Hyde Park or Regent's Park, I could not only walk upon the grass, but lie upon it, or roll upon it, or play one-catch-all with children, boys, dogs, or sheep upon it. And I took my revenge for once for being so long confined to gravel walks, and gave the grass an opportunity to grow under my foot whenever I entered one of these parks. This free and easy rural character of the London parks is quite in keeping with the tone and atmosphere of the great metropolis itself, which in so many respects has a country homeliness and sincerity, and shows the essentially bucolic taste of the people, contrasting in this respect the parks and gardens of Paris, which show as unmistakably the citizen and the taste for art and the beauty of design and ornamentation. Hyde Park seems to me the perfection of a city pleasure ground of this kind, because it is so free and so thoroughly a piece of the country, and so exempt from any petty artistic displays. In walking over Richmond Park, I found I had quite a day's work before me, as it was like traversing a township, while the great park at Windsor Castle, being upwards of 50 miles around, might well make the boldest pedestrian hesitate. My first excursion was to Hampton Court, an old royal residence, where I spent a delicious October day wandering through Bushy Park, and looking with covetous, though admiring eyes upon the vast herds of sheep that dotted the plains or gave way before I entered the woods. Now there seemed literally to be many thousands of these beautiful animals in this park, and the loud hankering sounds of the bucks as they pursued or circled around the does was a new sound to my ears. The rabbits and pheasants also were objects of the liveliest interest to me, and I found that after all a good shot at them with the eye, especially when I could credit myself with alertness or stealthiness, was satisfaction enough. I thought it worthy of note that though these great parks in and about London were so free and apparently without any police regulations whatsoever, yet I never saw prowling about them any of those vicious, ruffianly-looking characters that generally infest the neighborhood of our great city, especially of a Sunday. There were troops of boys, but they were astonishingly quiet and innocuous. Very unlike American boys, white or black, a band of whom making excursions into the country are always a band of outlaws. Ruffianism with us is no doubt much more brazen and pronounced, not merely because the law is lax, but because such is the genius of the people.